late breaking news, and I mean real late. The Clippers have officially traded for James Harden. So here are the full details in that trade. So Clippers land James Harden, PJ Tucker, and Philip Petrus. The Sixers get Marcus Morris, Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington, KJ Martin, and multiple draft picks plus pick swaps. So this is really interesting because the Sixers didn't get who they wanted in Terrence Mann, and they also had, there was rumors going around that Powell was involved, and he wasn't. So they basically got Marcus Morris, Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington, and, a nice young player and KJ Martin, but they didn't really get the player prizes that they wanted. Although I will say that I do like the idea, and I've talked about it as we've gone on this journey, of the Sixers landing Marcus Morris, Nicholas Batum, and Robert Covington, just because you get those veteran guys that can come in. Now you're a little bigger, you're better defensively, and you got guys that actually want to play for the Sixers, right? Is this enough to keep Joel Embiid happy, right? Which we'll talk about in later videos. Look forward to those. But in the meantime, just talking about the Clippers, because the Clippers are the ones that landed James Harden. I also think PJ Tucker has potential to potentially be a solid piece for them, just given the fact that, if he could still has something left in the tank, that could be massive. Also, his just veteran leadership, his toughness, I think will be huge for the Clippers. But Clippers landing James Harden, this is something that kind of felt like it was inevitable. There were the talks that the Clippers kind of took a step back. And then there were talks that James Harden was ready to play for the Philadelphia 76ers, right? He goes, he has his bags packed, ready to board the plane. Sixers security stops him, and they have a conversation and say, hey, we want you to go to the practice facility. We want you to practice and get ready, and then we'll bring you back in. Just get ready as soon as possible. Get NBA shape, which tells me that James Harden very likely didn't look like he was in shape. He didn't really look like he was ready to go and be a part of this team. But now that this trade has gone through, I think you can make the argument that it's not necessarily that maybe it was just they were planning on trading him and looking to trade him. And I think that maybe they just wanted to give a little look at how do the Clippers look without James Harden? Are they terrible and it's we really need James Harden? Or were we able to be competitive, which they were? And now it's okay, well, we can get away with trading James Harden. Let's go get some players that actually want to come and play for us. You get some nice size, you get some nice shooting, you get some nice defense. You can go bigger now, right? This allows Tyrese Maxey to kind of be the guy alongside Joel Embiid. Hopefully you keep Joel Embiid happy. So from the Sixers standpoint, I think that makes a lot of sense. From the Clippers standpoint, you're trying to compete with the firepower of the Phoenix Suns, the Denver Nuggets, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics. And, James Harden is a guy that can really impact the game. I mean, he can win you games, led the league in assists. He has more than enough talent around him. Front to back, this might be one of the most talented rosters James Harden has ever been on. I know James Harden has been on, a roster with the Nets with Kyrie and KD, as well as, the OKC days. But James Harden, KD, and Russell Westbrook were not the same guys they are today with James Harden. James Harden also had, those Houston teams. But, you think Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Zoo, that's a star-studded starting five. On paper, that starting five is ridiculous. But does it translate? Now, I think over the course of the regular season, this is huge for the Clippers because Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are going to miss a bunch of games. So now you got a guy in James Harden that can kind of help manage that workload, that can help kind of, play through the course of the regular season. I don't think this moves the needle very much for the Clippers as far as contention goes. Now, time will tell. We'll see. I'm not going to completely write them off, but James Harden, notorious for just disappearing in the playoffs. Can Kawhi Leonard and Paul George stay healthy come the playoffs? Because that's the big problem, right? If Paul George and Kawhi Leonard end up injured and they're not healthy come playoff time, then getting James Harden does nothing. James Harden and Russell Westbrook aren't winning you an NBA championship. So you need Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to still be healthy and ready to go. If they do, and they can figure this out, right, and build that chemistry quick enough, Clippers definitely are a threat and definitely could be hoisting that Larry O'Brien trophy at the end of the season. But they have a lot that they need to figure out. What do they do with Russell Westbrook and James Harden? Do they start them both? Kind of see if that, OKC Houston Rocket thing works, right? We've seen them both play before. I wouldn't be shocked if Ty Lue starts with them, sees how it looks, and then makes adjustments accordingly. You know what I mean? So, I could see them maybe starting Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Zoo, and giving it a couple games, maybe giving it 5 to 10 games to kind of see, does that lineup actually work, or do we need to bring Russ off the bench? But I do think very likely, inevitably, Russell Westbrook will be coming off the bench for the Clippers, and they'll probably go with, James Harden in the starting unit. Now, the Clippers gave up a lot of depth, but I do think PJ Tucker helps. And my guess is that ultimately the starting unit will be James Harden, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, PJ Tucker, and Zoo. Now you have a nice balance of defense, toughness, scoring, shooting. You are one of the better starting fives in the league, right? And can PJ Tucker maintain that defense and that toughness, right? I think that'd be huge. And, you have the size, you have the perimeter wings. Zoo is fantastic. James Harden's going to make him look great, right? I mean, we've seen how he operates and how well he plays alongside bigs. So running that pick and roll action, just James Harden just driving and just creating all of the distractions to be able to dump it off to Zoo. I think that they're going to be in a good spot. Look, Clippers are still deep. Again, they gave up a lot of talent, right? Marcus Morris, solid player for them. Robert Covington, Nicholas Batum. That's 3 very solid wings. But they still have more than enough to be a very good, very terrifying team. And especially once you get to the playoffs, if everybody's healthy, then you're only running, 7, 8 guys anyway. And you have more than enough to go and be a terrifying basketball team. James Harden gives you a level of just playmaking that the Clippers haven't had. I mean, James Harden's the best point guard Clippers have had since Chris Paul, right? They haven't had a guy this good at just facility. I mean, he led the league in assists. Defensively, if you do start Russ and James Harden, I think that's questionable, but I think that that's why eventually they'll just move PG to the 2, Kawhi to the 3, or Kawhi to the 2, PG to the 3. However, one of those two will end up playing the 2 guard, and then you put PJ Tucker at the 4, and then Zoo at the 5. And I think that that's probably the most balanced lineup. And then Russ coming off the bench with everyone else. I think that gives you the best approach. And then you can kind of always have a James Harden or Russell Westbrook. Look, I think the Clippers had to make this move, right? I think that they need to keep up with these other teams. They're in win now mode. They don't really have much of a future as far as young talent and assets to go and turning that into something. I mean, they have, some nice pieces, but they're in win now mode. They're not Oklahoma City. They're not Detroit. They're not this team that, has a bunch of this young talent that you're, trying to gear up to be good in 3 or 4 years from now. No, Clippers are in absolute win now mode. This to me was a win now move that they had to make. The upside is too good. Again, I'm not super sold on the Clippers with James Harden, right? But I'm open enough to see what this looks like. Are they able to put it together? Because if they can figure it out and they can put it together and guys can stay healthy and James Harden can even just remotely step up, right? Then I think that they'll be very good. Couple things though. Is James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George actually going to fit? Is it actually going to work? Because, yes, James Harden, he played alongside Kyrie and Kevin Durant, but he got to play the point guard. Kyrie said, he's the point guard, I'm the shooting guard. And James Harden basically got to be James Harden and have the ball and play, make, and do all his stuff, right? Well, is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George going to be willing to defer to James Harden? Is James Harden going to be able to be James Harden, right? Is James Harden going to be okay with, the ball getting to Kawhi and he's just dribbling, and then taking shots, and now James Harden is basically like, you get my point? Like, I don't know if these three are going to be able to work because James Harden is best with the ball in his hands, but Kawhi Leonard can be a complete black hole. Paul George is more willing to give it up and play make, but, he's going to want to get his shots. Is James Harden really going to be able to basically play just pure point guard, pick and choose his spots offensively, and basically play third fiddle? Is he going to be able to do that? I don't know. If he is, and he can, and he's willing, then sure. It takes a lot of pressure off of James Harden. Because now James Harden doesn't have to be, the second best player and have huge scoring nights on a nightly basis come the playoffs. Right? If Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are healthy, then the Clippers might not necessarily need James Harden to be this elite scorer. They could probably get away with him just kind of being the playmaker, right? And then whatever offense he gives you is offense he gives you. And his ability to shoot off the ball and stuff like that. And then Russ can be Russ. You can even, play Russ and Harden at times. They have played together on, with the Clippers or with the Rockets as well as OKC days. So there's ways to make it work. But I think personally the jury's still a little out. We'll see. Time will tell. But it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. And if you're a Clipper fan, you got to be excited for this. But as far as, them being like one of the top teams, I think it's kind of like, let's wait and see. But that's me personally. And as always, pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you love James Harden on the Clippers? Do you think that this makes them one of the best teams in the league? Do you think it makes them the best team? Do you think I'm not really sold on it? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below.